Today's video is going to be a ramble about parasites. It's a two-part video, and I'm just going to get straight into it. Yes, there's a conspiracy in the West about parasites, and I mean, the conspiracy is that all the doctors and the medical systems in the West have decided that they're going to ignore parasites and pretend that humans never get infected with parasites. I'm just going to read some Wikipedia articles and show you that humans do indeed get infected with parasites, and we do in the West. So I don't understand why doctors turn a blind eye to the fact that humans do get infected with parasites. And I'll have some personal anecdotes, and yes, I know about the whole ivermectin. I'm not about to shill for ivermectin. I think that that's like a controlled opposition, but hinting at the truth, I don't think that if you have a cold, that the solution is to deworm yourself. But I do think that there is a conspiracy there. I think that that in general, westernized medicine tries to pretend like we don't get infected with parasites, but that's just wrong. So let's read about this. Blastocystis is a genus of single-celled parasites belonging to a group of organisms that are known as the Struminiopod. All of this stuff, they come up with words they don't know. Germ theory is flawed, and virus theory is flawed. I don't believe that they actually know half of what they pretend that they know. And right when I was young, they showed us viruses looking like these crystal-headed things that injected. Nowadays, they do the CGI blobs. They don't actually know everything that's happening, but there is a general conspiracy in the West to be hush-hush about parasites, even though everybody... This should just be as known of a thing as bacteria, viruses, even though I'm saying that I don't necessarily believe that these things are what they say. Why do we ignore parasites? We know and we get taught about bacteria and viruses, but parasites are this thing that they just completely ignore in the West. They pretend like that we don't have them. But that's not true. Let's keep reading. They live in the gastrointestinal tracts, as diverse as humans, farm animals, birds, rodents, reptiles, amphibians, fish, cockroaches. Low host specificity. It's one of the most common human parasites in the world and has a earth-wide distribution. Hate the word globe. It is the most common parasitic infection in the United States, where it infected approximately 23% of the total population during the year 2000. If something doesn't give you a confidence interval, it's meaningless garbage. But you see that they never give you confidence. People don't know statistics. Even most scientists don't know statistics. You can't... Approximately 23%. Okay, maybe I could go read the article and get a confidence interval. About a quarter, though, according to this study. About a quarter of people were infected with this parasite. But how many Americans de-parasite themselves? Try to do things to get rid of parasites. No, doctors pretend like parasites don't exist in America. In less developed areas, infection rates are as high as 100%. High rates in individuals that work with animals. These days, I see so many people these days that sleep with their dogs, and they have cats all over the place, and people like make out with their animals. Really gross. So, an alternative theory is that blastocystis is not a pathogen at all, has been recently strengthened based on they don't know exactly what this stuff is, but who knows? It's always changing. What does that even mean? That it's not a pathogen? Anyways, there's confusion when it comes to this stuff. They're constantly changing. They used to think it was a yeast, I guess. The original description was as a yeast due to its yeast-like glistening appearance in fresh, wet mounts and the absence of locomotion. Okay, well, its sensitivity to anti-protozoal drugs, that's one of the ways that they classify things. Oh, we do this thing that kills parasites, and it kills this thing. Well, I guess it's probably a parasite. But who knows exactly what's going on with the biology of this stuff? I don't trust much of what they say. Viruses could just be fragmented DNA that's just like, it's like trash, genetic trash that floats around people's bodies. That could very much be what viruses are. Just garbage floating around. Genetic garbage. However, major revisions were made to its classification. Okay, this stuff is just kind of boring. I'll move on. But I thought this was interesting. It's the organism that caused the Great Famine of Ireland, and the organism responsible for sudden oak disease. Things that are related genetically, which who knows exactly what that means. Okay. Signs and symptoms. Let's get to the chase. Okay, so there's this parasite out there. Maybe a parasite, maybe, I don't know. It reacts to anti-parasites. And it infects about a quarter of Americans. And let's look at the symptoms. 50 to 80% of individuals will show symptoms. Okay, what are the symptoms? Diarrhea, constipation, nausea, abdominal cramps, bloating, excessive gas, and anal itching. Most of the cases of the infection appear to become diagnosed as IBS. How often do you hear people say that they have IBS today? Have they ever mentioned to you about parasitic infections, or how they could be infested with a parasite, or how they've tried a parasite cleanse? I don't know that at all, but I hear about people with IBS left and right. Maybe they should try a parasite cleanse. And here, I guess I'll just talk about myself, because I have in the past suffered from abdominal issues, mostly just like a generalized nausea is what I have had for a lot of my life. It got a lot worse after I was prescribed to be on antibiotics habitually for acne when I was in my teens. And that really screwed up my stomach. I had a really bad episode one time that made I stopped taking the pills because my stomach, it felt like I was being stabbed to death in my stomach. But anyways, yeah, I've always kind of had generalized nausea and all that. And so do your own research. I recently did look into, who knows, I'm going to try a parasite cleanse. I'm going to just assume, hey, I probably have something. I've gotten sick in Mexico before. And things like that. I probably have a parasite or two. And so again, go do your own research. If you want to just do the Red Lodge thing, and I think that the ivermectin is a controlled opposition. They like to paint the opposition as like a clown, so they go extreme with it. I don't think you have to do that. Look into natural stuff. Wormwood. I did wormwood, black walnut, whole, and cloves. I just did tea. I think it's just a really normal part of life. Think of do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of how children always love making potions and mixing different things. That's supposed to be a normal part of life, gathering the different herbs and brewing teas. It's very satisfying to brew a little tea and drink it. So yeah, I did that for, I don't know, 3 weeks or something. Wormwood and yeah, black walnut and clove. And I do see a big improvement. I don't really have any just general nausea anymore. So whatever it did, it fixed it. And I can attest for wormwood is like I can immediately feel it work on my stomach. It's very bitter. That's probably where it got its name. Because in the Bible, they mention wormwood as being extremely bitter. And I don't think that the biblical wormwood is necessarily I think that the herb was named after the biblical idea because it's so bitter and because it kills worms. But yeah, I did it myself. A little TMI, toilet stuff. I didn't like see any worms. I didn't see myself pass any worms, but there's a lot of parasites that aren't like big worms. Tons of parasites exist that aren't giant worms that you're going to see pass. But I know a few people in real life who both say that they've dewormed themselves and actually seen themselves pass worms. So it's a possibility. Okay, the time scale of infection with a parasite can range from weeks to years. If you don't cleanse yourself of the parasite, they're just going to live inside of you. For many years, scientists believed one species infected humans, others infected other animals. They called from humans the hominis and gave other names to other ones, like Blastocystis rati, but then they found the rati in human. Biology is just a bunch of made-up stuff, and they think that they can just like name names for anything, and that makes it legit. Whereas in reality, just things adapt. A lot of things are the same thing, they just look different because of the way that God made this place that biology has the ability to adapt. The anti-malarial drug from Artemisia annua, that's wormwood. So wormwood is actually anti-malarial too, I guess. I didn't even know. It's like in school they don't really stress on the fact that, did you guys know malaria is a parasite? Malaria is a blood parasite. But this is just a medical article about how wormwood cures, or it demonstrates remarkably strong activity against H. pylori. How many people have you heard out there that have H. pylori? Did their doctor ever tell them to try wormwood? And you know what's hilarious is how people have so much trust in the medical establishment and pills. Where do you think they get pills from? They have to come from somewhere. They have to come from Earth somewhere at a certain point. They have to come from something from God first and then be manipulated. And it's almost always the case that going to the natural source first is going to be better. Why are you going to take some concocted pharmakia when there's known herbs out there that treat these conditions? And a lot of times the herbs are really strong, but doctors ignore herbal remedies. Western doctors, at least. Here's the paper if you want to go look it up. About malaria. Malaria is a serious and sometimes fatal disease caused by a parasite. I honestly had no idea growing up that malaria was a parasite. Here's the conspiracy. Why won't my MS doctor treat parasites? Because they are a shill for the Bafo medical establishment that only pushes pills. Did you guys know that toxoplasmosis, the thing that crazy cat ladies get from the cat poop, that's a parasitic protozoan? Okay, part 2. Changing gears completely. Hope you enjoyed that little ramble about parasites. If you have gastrointestinal problems, I highly suggest you start doing some research on a parasite cleanse. Try it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't have parasites, you do the cleanse, and you still feel the same way. Go make sure you research proper doses and all that. And just be safe. I mean, you should always be safe with any drug that you're going to take. So the second parasite is a spiritual parasite. I haven't talked about this subject in a while, but you are surrounded by Satanists. The parasite here are these Bafo Satanists. If you're new to my channel and you're wondering, what am I saying when I say Bafo? Short for Baphomet. You're surrounded by people that unapologetically worship this transgender idol, Baphomet. All you have to do is go to Amazon, type in Baphomet statue, start reading away at the thousands of comments of unapologetic Baphomet worshippers out there. They have altars to Baphomet in their house. You know how the media tries to portray, oh, satanic panic. What? There really are Satanists everywhere. Go look on Amazon. Look up candles, miniature, they call them like spell candles or whatever. You will see that this world is full of satanic, openly satanic, unapologetic Satan worshippers. They are the parasite. They have total control of the media and the education system, and they've infected the bloodlines of humanity with their trans agenda and eugenics, and they're in everybody's family at this point. This is the parasite. I obviously can't even read a lot of what these people wrote because it's disgusting, blasphemous. Look at it. People buy it for their sister. Could you imagine buying your sister a satanic idol statue? My sister loved it. All over the world. Mexico, Canada. Okay, you are surrounded by unapologetic Satan worshippers. And look at the medical staff right here. To go back to bring it back to the Western doctors ignoring it. These Westernized doctors know about this Baphomet stuff. They're often Baphomet worshippers themselves. Your doctor probably is transgender or intersex. Almost guaranteed. And oftentimes unapologetic Baphomet worshippers. One of the housekeepers was scared of it, thinking I am a Satan worshiper. Well, you are. This is kind of funny. I like down here. This just shows you the agenda. The only con, the breast looking like a built masculine structure opposed to having some breast itself. they want it to be a trans. It's supposed to be trans. It's not supposed to look like muscle boobs. They want nice female boobs on this thing. That's the only objection they have to this, that it wasn't trans enough for them. Looks great besides their Lilith. The breast did look a little muscular, as said in other reviews. That's their one complaint, that it wasn't trans enough for them. Okay, that's it for this video, and I'll continue reading Isaiah. Stick around. My next video will be continuing to read from the book of Isaiah. Hope you enjoyed this video. God bless everyone.